Welcome back to Daily Persuasion. I'm your host, Joshua Lisec, the New York Times bestselling author and co-author and ghostwriter of 96 precisely nonfiction books. A few minutes every day, I teach you, taking lessons, curating insights from my career as a ghostwriter from the news. I teach you how to influence the VIPs in your life. Sometimes those people who are important to you are anti you, meaning they have the mental malware, the mind virus that is liberalism. This is something we talk about a lot on this channel because when we are persuading in public, we often find those people who make themselves unpersuadable. It's kind of like how a hypnotist, and I'm a professional hypnotist as well, we will often encounter people when we mention that we are hypnotists, that that's what we do professionally, in addition to whatever else we do. They will say, I'm not hypnotizable. I can't be hypnotized. I'm not suggestible. That is generally how the liberal mind is with regard to any normal everyday topic. That's not true. That's an exception. That's not fair. That's mean. This past week, Mike Cernovich had yet another viral tweet in which he pointed out that liberals are like children. The liberal is like a child. And those of us who do not identify as liberal, we have to have a parental, or rather a paternal oversight over the liberal. Liberals, if you have any experience with them, including trying to persuade them successfully or unsuccessfully, you will notice that, as Jonathan Haidt points out, they think in terms of mean and unfair. They want you to be they'll have bumper stickers like, just be a good effing person. Be kind. Sometimes they'll throw a little picture of a bumblebee in there, smiling with bumblebee, because they often anthropomorphize animals and non-human things. This is why so many of them are vegan or vegetarian, because when they see an animal, they see a toddler. And yet when they see their own preborn children, they don't see a full human being. So the liberal possesses these inescapably different and opposing viewpoints on similar topics. So this is why when you see a vegan protester, for example, they're all liberal, of course, they will have what appear to be pro-life signs. So they'll have a sign that says kindness over killing. They'll say, it's a person too. They'll say, ironically, choose life with a picture of a lamb. Okay, if you don't have any context, if you don't see that the person has short hair, a woman, you'll think it's a pro-life protest. If the person has long hair, it's a pro-life protest. Do you understand the difference? Natural colored hair, long hair, pro-life. Short hair, unnatural hair, like a neon green or something like that. Okay, this is an anti-human, pro-animal protest. Generally, the vegan worldview is fundamentally anti-human. It is a denial of human nature. It is an unhuman activity to promote the ethical vegan religion. I want to point this out. And it is the job of the non-liberal to have the paternal oversight over any of the liberals in their lives. Because if you think about it, they are generally not able to reason critically, logically, from first principles all the way to second order effects, third order effects, and beyond. When you're engaging with a liberal, and the benefit of this is, with this being your understanding of the liberal mind, you will find yourself emotionally detached. You will not feel like you have to convince them. You will not do the deer we've talked about on this, where you're defending, explaining, and so on and so forth. If you've read No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover, you're familiar with this concept. That is what non-liberals, conservatives, libertarians, etc., will do when encountering a liberal. They will immediately go to their level and even below them and try to get their affirmation, their approval, their head pat. And that's what the conservatives have done. The old guard has done for decades, frankly, with liberals, but no more. Now the correct attitude is to paternal instinct. Now, The liberal approach, imagine the mind of a goody two-shoes fifth grade girl. This is what I want you to imagine. A goody two-shoes fifth grade girl who gets perfect grades, teacher's pet. These sorts of, let's say, word cloud descriptors for the liberal mindset is installed in every liberal, whether they are male or whether they're female. And imagine that this fifth grader, imagine she encounters an older gentleman who has found future roadkill, meaning that they have just come across, near the sidewalk, on the side of the road, a poor animal that has been struck and has been fatally injured. And this particular gentleman is about to put down this animal to put them out of their misery. You see, it's just not going to make it. It's rough, and the poor creature is suffering. So the gentleman, he is engaging in adult decision making, which the liberal is incapable of. So what does the fifth grader do? Oh my God, you're so mean. You're hurting it. You're hurting it. That's not fair, this fifth grader might say. And of course, the gentleman, no, I'm putting it out of its misery. But you're hurting it. You're killing it. You see the issue here? Now, this is, and of course, an exaggerated analogy and metaphor. It's directionally accurate. It has hyperbolic truth in it. And that is, when you are talking to a liberal, you're talking to a fifth grader, a goody two-shoes fifth grade girl who has no experience with the real world. I will often say that the liberal mind is a reality-free zone. That's just a little bit too patronizing. I think it's more helpful to say that the liberal is like a child. And you don't need to explain yourself to a child. You don't need to justify. You don't need to reason to try to convince them. Your understanding is that this is for their own good. And it's for the good of whatever it is that you're doing. So when Donald Trump is engaging in trade negotiations over using tariffs, what does the liberal say? The liberal screams, shrieks, and shouts. That's not fair. That's mean. You're hurting our friends. They engage in the liberal fifth grade mindset. When the liberal grows up, they become a conservative. And by the way, this is actually true. When you look at populations, you'll see that over time, as people age, as they accrue experience and wisdom in the real world, they go from being liberal to being conservative. In fact, there's an expression: if you're not liberal when you're young, you're heartless. If you're not a conservative when you're older, you're stupid. Probably true. Now, of course, we have compassion for the suffering, which is why, in our example, the gentleman engages in putting the animal out of its misery following a obviously fatal wound. But the liberal happening upon this says, that's so mean. Why are you hurting the animal? It's like that. So the persuasion lesson or insight here for you is to persuade yourself out of trying to counterattack the liberal when they say a liberal thing. It's to keep yourself mentally and emotionally calm, realizing that shrieking blue-haired protester with spittle flying out at you, saying you trying to destroy LGBTQIA plus MAP youth, for example, like, you're hurting trans youth. You don't have to argue. You don't have to explain. You don't have to counterattack. You just simply have to remind yourself, oh, I'm dealing with a child. This is like a child. And in your mind, you can quietly say, no, go to your room. That is effectively what you are doing when you're engaging a liberal. And so you need not escalate emotionally. What this will allow you to do, by the way, is to be logical and to appear persuasive to all observers, including any other liberals who are watching, going, wow, that was like so mature and like really impressive, the way that he responded to Margaret Brennan when she was lashing out and shrieking, spit flying everywhere, teeth bared, eyebrows jumping off of her face, pupils dilated. And he just said, I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country. And I believe the majority of Americans agree with me. He didn't say, well, you, blah, 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 blah. There's no counterattacking. There's no emotional escalation. It was just a dad and a child. And that is the correct way to view engagement with